The ledger. I never thought I'd become a killer. But then again, I never thought my sister would end up dead in a Manchester alleyway either, her body found 3 days after she'd gone missing from her shift at the coffee shop. My name is Rachel Moss, and this is the story of how I destroyed 3 lives because they destroyed hers. The police said it was a mugging gone wrong. Emma had been walking home from work, taking a shortcut through the backstreets near Piccadilly. Someone had attacked her, taken her bag, and when she'd resisted, they'd hit her hard enough that she'd fallen, cracked her skull on the pavement. By the time someone found her, it was too late. They never caught who did it. The investigation went cold within a month. No witnesses, no CCTV in that particular stretch of alley, nothing in her bag worth killing for. Just another tragic statistic in a city with too much crime and too few answers. But I couldn't let it go. Emma was all I had left after Mum died. She was 23, brilliant, funny, planning to go back to university in the autumn. She deserved better than to be forgotten in some police file marked unsolved. So I started digging. It took me 6 months to find the truth. 6 months of combing through Emma's social media, talking to her friends, hanging around the places she'd worked. 6 months of slowly piecing together the last few weeks of her life. That's when I found out about Danny Price and his 2 mates, Kyle Barrett and Jamie Sutton. They'd been harassing Emma for weeks, coming into the coffee shop where she worked, making crude comments, asking her out, not taking no for an answer. Emma had complained to her manager, but the manager had done nothing. Said boys will be boys, said Emma should be flattered by the attention. One of Emma's co-workers finally told me the rest. How Danny and his friends had been waiting outside the shop the night Emma died. How they'd followed her when she left. How the next day, Danny had been flashing around a new phone that looked suspiciously like Emma's. I went to the police with this information. Sat in a gray interview room and told them everything. They listened politely, took notes, said they'd look into it. A week later, they called me back. Not enough evidence, they said. The phone could have been bought legitimately. No one had actually seen the 3 men with Emma that night. All circumstantial. Nothing they could prosecute. I asked what about questioning them, about putting pressure on them, about doing something. The detective, a tired-looking man named Inspector Morris, gave me a sad smile and said they'd done all they could. Sometimes, he said, there just isn't enough to go on. That's when I knew I was on my own. I started by watching them. Danny Price was 26, worked in a warehouse in Salford, spent most of his free time at a gym near the Arndale Center. Kyle Barrett was 28, unemployed, living off benefits and whatever cash he made doing odd jobs that probably weren't legal. Jamie Sutton was 25, worked nights at a petrol station, had a girlfriend who didn't know he spent his afternoons drinking at the pub with his mates. I watched them for weeks, learning their routines, their habits, their weaknesses. And slowly, carefully, I began to form a plan. Danny was first. He was the ringleader, the one Emma's friends said had been the most aggressive, the most persistent. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he went to the gym at 7 in the evening, stayed for exactly 90 minutes, then walked home through Ordsall. The route took him past a construction site, usually deserted at that time of night. I waited for him there one Thursday in March, wearing dark clothes, my face covered. When he passed, I stepped out behind him. Danny Price? He turned, more annoyed than alarmed. Yeah? Who's asking? Emma Moss's sister. I saw the recognition in his eyes, followed immediately by fear. He started to back away, but I was faster. I'd brought a police baton I'd bought online, and I used it. Not to kill him. I wasn't ready for that yet. But I hurt him. Made sure he'd remember. That's for Emma, I said, standing over him as he curled on the ground. For every time you harassed her, every time you made her afraid to go to work. And this, I hit him again, is just the beginning. I left him there, bleeding and groaning. He'd survive. He'd recover. But he'd know I was coming. The next morning, I sent an anonymous package to the police. Inside was Danny's phone, the one I'd taken from his jacket while he was unconscious. The one that, when they checked it properly this time, would have text messages to Kyle and Jamie from the night Emma died. Messages bragging about what they'd done, about the stupid girl who'd fought back, about needing to lie low for a while. I'd found the phone in Danny's flat. Breaking in had been easier than I'd expected. He'd left a window open, practically inviting me in. The messages had been deleted, but I knew a bit about technology from my job in IT support. Deleted didn't mean gone, not if you knew where to look. 2 days later, the police arrested all 3 of them. I watched the news coverage with a feeling of grim satisfaction. Danny Price, Kyle Barrett, and Jamie Sutton, charged with manslaughter. The evidence was solid now. Phone records placing them at the scene. CCTV from a nearby street showing them following someone matching Emma's description. And most damning, those text messages recovered from Danny's phone. The trial was set for 6 months away. But I couldn't wait that long. Because I knew how the system worked. I knew that good lawyers could poke holes in evidence, that witnesses could be discredited, that sometimes, even with everything pointing to guilt, juries let people walk free. I couldn't risk that. Not after what they'd done to Emma. Kyle was next. He was the easiest target, living alone in a grotty flat in Moss Side, no job, no real routine except drinking. I watched him stumble home from the pub one night, barely able to walk straight, and I followed him inside. The flat was disgusting. Empty cans everywhere, dirty clothes piled in corners, the smell of old takeaway and stale beer. Kyle collapsed on his sofa, already half asleep. I stood over him, thinking about Emma. About how scared she must have been in that alley. About how these men had taken everything from her because they couldn't handle being told no. Kyle's eyes opened, bleary and confused. "Who are you?" "Justice," I said, and I walked out. But I'd left something behind. Pills, crushed into the bottle of whiskey sitting on his coffee table. Nothing exotic, just his own prescription medication. He'd been on antidepressants, I'd learned from rifling through his bathroom cabinet. A whole bottle's worth, ground up and dissolved, would be enough. They found him 2 days later. Overdose, the initial report said. Accidental, probably. A man with known mental health issues who'd been drinking heavily. Tragic, but not suspicious. But I knew. And Danny knew. I made sure of that, sending him a single text from a burner phone. 1 down. 2 to go. Emma says hello. The police increased security around Danny and Jamie after Kyle's death. They suspected foul play, suspected me, but they couldn't prove anything. I'd been careful. No fingerprints, no witnesses, nothing to connect me to Kyle's flat that night. But now Danny and Jamie were scared. Good. They should be. Jamie was the hardest. He had his girlfriend, Emma Chen, living with him. She seemed nice, from what I could tell. Worked as a teaching assistant, volunteered at an animal shelter on weekends. She had no idea what her boyfriend had done, what kind of man she was sleeping next to every night. Part of me wanted to tell her. Part of me wanted to spare her the pain of finding out. But I couldn't risk it. If I told her, she might warn Jamie, might help him disappear. So I waited. And I watched. And I found my moment. Jamie's petrol station was in Longsight, open 24 hours. He worked the overnight shift, midnight to 8 in the morning. Usually there was another employee there with him, but on Sundays, he worked alone. Budget cuts, he'd complained about to his mates at the pub. I came in at 3 in the morning on a Sunday in April. The shop was empty except for Jamie, sitting behind the counter, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when I entered, and I saw the recognition dawn. "You need to leave," he said, his hand moving towards something under the counter. An alarm, maybe, or a weapon. "I just want to talk," I said, keeping my distance. "About Emma." "I don't know what you're on about." "The police already cleared me." "They haven't cleared anyone." "You're out on bail, Jamie. Waiting for trial. You and Danny both. His face hardened. Yeah, well, that's a stitch-up, innit? That phone evidence, it's fake. Someone planted it. My solicitor says we'll get it thrown out. Is that right? Yeah. And you need to stop with whatever you think you're doing. Kyle's death, that's on you. Police know it. They're watching you. Let them watch. I pulled out my own phone, held it up so he could see the screen. On it was a video, grainy but clear enough. 3 men following a young woman down a dark street. One of them, unmistakably Jamie, reaching out to grab her bag. The woman turning, struggling. And then the fatal push, the crack of her head hitting concrete. Where did you get that? Jamie's voice was barely a whisper. Does it matter? What matters is I have it. And I can send it to the police, to the newspapers, to your girlfriend. Everyone will know what you did. That's not real. That's fake. You've doctored it. Have I? Want to take that chance? We stared at each other across the shop. I could see Jamie thinking, calculating. Could see the moment he decided. He lunged at me, fast for a big man. But I'd expected it. I dodged to the side, and he crashed into a display of crisps. I ran for the door, heard him swearing behind me, heard his footsteps pounding as he chased me out into the car park. I'd parked my car at the far end, near the road. I ran for it, fumbling with my keys. Jamie was right behind me, grabbing for my jacket. I spun around, and that's when I saw the lorry. It was coming fast, too fast for the narrow road. The driver probably tired after a long haul. Jamie saw it too, tried to stop, but his momentum carried him backward, out into the road. The impact was horrible. The sound of it, the screech of brakes too late, the way Jamie's body crumpled. I stood there, frozen, watching as the lorry finally stopped, as the driver jumped out, screaming. I got in my car and drove away. The news called it a tragic accident. Jamie Sutton, struck by a lorry while chasing someone from the petrol station. Probably a shoplifter, the report said. The driver was distraught, blameless. Just wrong place, wrong time. Only Danny and I knew different. I waited for the police to come. Waited for them to connect the dots, to realize that 2 of the 3 men accused of killing Emma were now dead themselves. But days passed, then weeks, and nothing happened. Kyle's death was still listed as accidental. Jamie's was just bad luck. And Danny was falling apart. I could see it in the photos his solicitor's office released, in the way he looked gaunt and terrified at his court appearances. His bail had been revoked after Jamie's death. Now he sat in prison, waiting for trial, knowing he was next. I could have left it there. Could have let the justice system take its course. But I kept thinking about Emma, about the fact that even with all the evidence, Danny might still walk free. Might serve a few years and get out, live the rest of his life while Emma's had been cut short. I couldn't allow that. Getting into the prison was harder, but not impossible. I had a friend who worked in admin at Strangeways, owed me a favor from years back. She didn't ask why I needed visitor access under a false name. Just arranged it and looked the other way. Danny looked terrible when they brought him into the visiting room. Thin, pale, his eyes darting around like a trapped animal. You, he said when he saw me. You've been killing us. Kyle, Jamie, you killed them. Did I? Or did they just pay for what they did to my sister? We didn't mean for her to die. It was an accident. She fought back, fell, hit her head. We didn't mean it. You followed her. You attacked her. You left her there to die. That's murder, Danny. It was Kyle. He was the one who pushed her. Jamie and me, we just watched. We didn't touch her. You're all guilty. All of you destroyed my sister's life. And now you've paid. Danny started crying then, big ugly sobs. Please. Please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'll confess. I'll tell them everything. Just please, don't hurt me. I don't want to die. I looked at him, this pathetic man who'd helped kill my sister, and I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction. Just emptiness. You're already dead, Danny. You'll spend the rest of your life in here, knowing what you did, knowing that every day could be your last. That's worse than anything I could do to you. I stood to leave, but Danny grabbed my hand through the barrier between us. What about Emma? Would she have wanted this? Would she have wanted you to become this? I pulled my hand away. Emma's dead. She doesn't get a choice. But I do. And I choose to make sure you never forget her. I left him there, still crying, and walked out of the prison. I drove home through Manchester, past the coffee shop where Emma had worked, past the alley where she'd died. I parked outside our old flat, the one I'd shared with her before she moved out to be closer to work. And I sat there, in the dark, and I realized what I'd become. I'd killed 2 men. Hurt another. Destroyed lives, broken laws, become the very thing I'd been fighting against. And for what? Emma was still dead. Nothing I'd done had brought her back. My phone rang. Inspector Morris. Miss Moss. I think we need to talk. About what? About Kyle Barrett. About Jamie Sutton. About your whereabouts on the nights they died. So they knew. Or suspected, at least. I'd been sloppy, or they'd been more thorough than I'd given them credit for. I'll come in, I said. Tomorrow morning. I think it's better if we come to you. Tonight. I looked up and saw the police car pulling up outside. 2 officers getting out, walking toward my building. This was it, then. The end. I thought about running. About disappearing, starting over somewhere new. But I was so tired. Tired of the anger, tired of the hate, tired of being someone Emma wouldn't recognize. So I opened the door when they knocked. Let them read me my rights, let them put the handcuffs on. And as they led me to the car, I looked up at the sky, at the stars barely visible through Manchester's light pollution. I'm sorry, Emma, I whispered. I'm so sorry. The trial was shorter than Danny's. I confessed to everything. Assault on Danny Price, the manslaughter of Kyle Barrett, something the law called constructive manslaughter for Jamie Sutton's death, since my actions had led directly to it. My solicitor tried to argue diminished capacity, tried to paint me as a grieving sister driven to temporary insanity. But I wouldn't let him. I'd known what I was doing. Every step of the way, I'd made my choices with clear eyes and a determined heart. The judge was an older man, a Mr. Justice Pemberton, with a stern face but kind eyes. He looked at me with something like sadness. Miss Moss, he said, the court understands the terrible loss you've suffered. We understand the pain of watching your sister's killers potentially escape justice. But we cannot allow vigilantism. We cannot allow people to take the law into their own hands, no matter how justified they feel. He sentenced me to 12 years for Kyle's death, 8 years for Jamie's death, to run concurrently. Another 3 years for the assault on Danny. 15 years total, eligible for parole after 10. As they led me away, I saw Danny in the public gallery. He'd been sentenced the week before. 20 years for manslaughter. He'd serve at least 12. Our eyes met for a moment, and I saw in his the same emptiness I felt. We'd both destroyed our lives over one terrible night. And Emma was still gone. Now I'm in style prison, writing this down because my therapist says it might help. That confronting what I did, understanding why I did it, might be the first step towards something like redemption. I don't know if I believe in redemption anymore. But I know this. Emma deserved better. Better than what Danny and his friends did to her. And better than what I did in her name. If I could go back, would I change things? I don't know. Part of me says yes, that I should have trusted the system, should have let the police do their job. But another part, the part that still burns with anger and grief, says no. Says that at least Emma's killers paid for what they did. But the biggest part, the part that keeps me awake at night, knows the truth. That violence only breeds more violence. That revenge doesn't heal wounds. That I didn't honor Emma's memory by becoming a killer. I just added more death to a world that already has too much. Emma was kind. She volunteered at homeless shelters. She wanted to be a social worker, to help people who'd fallen through the cracks. She believed in second chances, in rehabilitation, in the fundamental goodness of people. And I betrayed all of that. I became everything she stood against. So now I sit in this cell, serving my time, and I try to figure out how to live with what I've done. How to be the sister Emma deserved, even if it's too late. Maybe that's my real punishment. Not the years in prison, but the knowledge that I failed her. That when I had the chance to honor her legacy, I chose revenge instead. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry. That's all I have left to say.